the difference between the warrior and the badass. So the warrior is constantly in battle. It's fighting against the condition. So it's always in that war mode. You get up and you wake up, you battle, and everything. The badass in there understands that the pain's there.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Exploring You, our podcast to guide you and navigate you through the personal development jungle. My name's Darren Siegenberg, Elysium NLP and Mindcore CIC.
And I'm Alexandra Katze, nature coach and forest bathing guide.
And today's guest is Elliot Evans, who describes himself as the chronic badass himself. Welcome, Elliot.
Oh, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, it's great. No, thank you for your time, mate. Really good. So, first and foremost, who are you?
Sorry, cut out a little bit there. Was that?
Oh God, these damn internetists. Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? So come on, mate. Who are you?
It's obviously Elliot Evans, and it's the original chronic badass. The reason for that is we all talk about like titles and things like that. I could say, oh, I'm the managing director, I'm the founder, and everything else. But that's sort of like a title that you have during that piece of work. Whereas I live and breathe being a chronic badass, as in somebody who has a multitude of chronic illnesses and things like that, and I, instead of fighting them like a warrior, I take them on as a badass, and I think so that's me.
Excellent. Okay, so what's the chronic edge then? What's that all about?
Well, the chronic edge originally, many years ago, when I worked for the NHS, I was looking at doing something for like a lifestyle sort of thing, a bit of like a channel, bit of information about, you know, if you're what jeans you should wear, jeans with elastic waists because of like sometimes like with bloating, and talking about vitamins and things like that. And then I discovered like employee retention and the adaptation on productivity and how that all works with dissatisfaction and how that relates to chronic illness. So I did a little bit of that, but it didn't feel as though it was me. I'm very out there in that respect. I'm very forward thinking. I'll think of things that then people will go, where's that guy gone from 3 years ago? And I'll go, oh, well, you weren't in the room then, and everything. So I decided that I should make the business more who I am. So it's being redeveloped at the moment. So if you go on it now, it's all the retention stuff, which, you know, if you want to buy anything off that, great. Well, let's have a chat. But what's being done at the moment over the next week or so, it's becoming more in line with the badass type stuff. So it's going to be some chronic badass mentoring. So it's going to be people who have chronic illnesses and are either going into business rather than getting a job or something like that, because sometimes it's better as somebody with chronic illness to do their own sort of job so they can set their own hours. So if they're looking at starting a business, I can help with that from previous experiences in business advisory and startups. And then if they're going through life, so how little changes can actually give your new life a better sort of start, especially a pre-diagnosis, but we'll go more into that later. And then there's a lot about research. I'm very much into that, looking at all the different ways that chronic illness can be approached, and looking at being involved in that sort of research as well. And then there's a lot about education in there. So there'll be guidebooks about, like, I just finished one the other day on the gender pain gap. There'll be information on one of the models that I use that I've created to do with how the foods you eat and how you eat them, and different things like that. And lots of information. So that's what's being changed at the moment. So that's probably the best way of describing it. It's all about the red. Red doesn't always mean danger. It's your journey starts with research, education, and development.
Wow. When we're talking about chronic illnesses, what are we describing? What are we talking about?
Well, chronic illness is sort of like it's a massive umbrella. It can be a multitude of conditions. When I say that, so a chronic condition is best defined as something that is continuous. over, I think the NHS look at about a 3 to 6 month period. If you have something constantly for around 3 to 6 months, probably 12 months is probably the better bet of looking at it. It becomes a chronic condition. It is continuous. So examples of chronic conditions would be fibromyalgia, which in itself is an umbrella term of a multitude of symptoms where they can't define what the overriding symptom is. So they give it an umbrella term, which encapsulates a number of symptoms. Undescribed pain, undiagnosed pain is probably the way of looking at it. You've got some arthritis can be considered chronic. So what I have is kidney disease. Kidney disease is a chronic condition, and a lot of these can be developmental as well. They can deep. I can't never pronounce the word. It kind of goes. It can get worse. It can get worse and things like that. So it's a lot of these conditions. You'll have them, and you will always have them. So that's probably the best way of describing a chronic illness.
And yourself, are you kind of like helping people with that, or are you just giving them the information, or do you come up with something like
a bit of both? So I have. I counted the other day. Somebody asked me. They said, "What condition do you got?" And I was like, "Oh, but I should write these down." And other than the umbrella ones, which would be here all day, I've probably got about 8. So we cross neurodiversity and chronic illness. And everything. So what I do with that is, because I understand how those symptoms interplay with your body and how things you can do and motivation stuff. So I will work as a mentor in that on motivation and accountability, but also providing that sort of information, because there's not a lot of information out there that helps people. There's a lot of like, you're lazy, you're a burden, you're all negative, all these snake oil stuff of, try yoga. Have you tried not being ill? That yes, every day. There's all these different things out there. So there's a lot of information needing to be out there that's more, researched and things like that. So I want to try and get the research, but I want to be involved in that sort of research as well. I want to look and see if there is ways of developing a cure, which I'm sure there is. It'll be genetics and different things like that. So I want to be involved in that. So in relation to what I'm looking at doing is helping. So I have a couple of mentees that I help in relation to business and different creative ways of improving little changes either in their life or in their business. And I'm very creative thinking, so I'll think of things that they might not have thought of them. And I'm very, it's very interesting in that is I can spend like a couple of hours with you and give you a hell of a lot of information, which some mentors and some businesses, not all of them, might spend months doing it and rinse you for it. Let's do it over a brew, that sort of thing. It's, and it's more informal type thing. So that's the type of thing. I enjoy research. I enjoy writing. I do a lot of writing. And I enjoyed the development side, either in a business or with a person.
I'm curious.
Are you looking at
in your research? Did you find out like a root cause of all these chronic diseases, or can they?
There is a multitude. Different conditions are triggered by different things. A good percentage of them are triggers within the body. So how like they say in cancer's in every single person, but it needs to be activated. Mm-hmm. So certain conditions can be activated by a series of events. So for example, fibromyalgia, we use fibromyalgia, the umbrella fibromyalgia, is often triggered by severe trauma or stress. So you could have something like myself with a severe surgery that caused a lot of things in there that triggered some sort of pain receptor in my body, and it never shut off. So, and then it's developed into other things. So there is lots of look at that. There is a lot of the way that the chemicals relate in your body and how they interact. So how they interact with exercise, how they interact with foods and things like that. So you can make it more manageable. Cure, probably at the moment, probably not. There'll be people out there that will disclaim it, but currently according to the NHS. There is no medical model. There's things that they're looking at, but there's ways of managing it and things. So there's that's what I found from a lot of the research. A lot of my other research has been on the employment side as well. You know, people being employed with neurodiversity and with chronic illness tend to lose jobs when they get ill as opposed to get jobs when they're ill. So it's looking at long-term illness and neurodiversity versus dissatisfaction, and the figures and the monetary values on that. And when you actually look at that, it's actually a better strategy for a business to hire somebody with a chronic illness or disability than it is to hire somebody who's dissatisfied with the job and is just doing it for a job. So it's interesting, those types of areas of research.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel there is also a relation, like with a chronic illness, when you have a steady job, does it help to get through your day better, or is there anything you can say?
Yeah, if you've got a manager or a boss, or however you want to call it, who is understanding of a chronic illness. So I know some that are understanding of chronic illnesses and things like that. When you've got somebody like that who understands that you might need to take 5 minutes, you might need to work at home today, you might need to, you know, wear slippers in the office, you know, so completely, it sounds stupid, but it is important. The pressure on feet for like plantar fasciitis, for example, is incredibly painful for standing, so comfortable footwear is important. So if you have an employer that understands those areas and is willing to work with you as opposed to against you, you will actually stay in a business for a lot longer, and you're more committed to that job as well. You will try more. A thing that a lot of people don't understand with people with chronic illness, especially with pain, is that it takes a lot to take them out. So when somebody, you know, a regular person, shall we say, gets ill, and I'm ill, something's wrong, something's different, I might think, sure, I should take time out. I might go off ill or something like that. A person with a chronic illness, it takes a lot to take them out. You know, it's like pain level starts at 3. Pain level's meant to start at 0. You know, so it's so you're already working on a sort of high level of something already. So it's simple, like, I've got a headache and everything, and you just carry on. You know, so it's you're less likely to leave for reasons like that.
Yeah, it's difficult because there is that lack of knowledge, isn't it? I think a lot of the time, and I might be sounding quite out of the, you know, generalizing.
There's no wrong questions.
People have these
only silly answers.
It's I don't care. I don't care. I just say what I say. But you know, a lot of companies and stuff like that, but it's just like a tick box. In my eyes, I'm not saying all. But it just feels that way. So is it a case of that lack of knowledge? I mean, obviously, there's so many different chronic illnesses that you can't really know everything about them all. Certainly as a business, what I'm saying. But is it that lack of knowledge that stops them from bringing people in? Are they more likely to say this person's going to be off more than he's going to be in?
Yeah, it is. It's down to myths. So I'm going to plug my book here. I wrote a book about the 10 myths of ill health and employment, and in there it talks about what people see based on what they've heard as opposed to what the reality is. So if we use one of them, for example, of laziness, for example, is a really good one, because if somebody's got a chronic illness like chronic fatigue, for example, where you get tired very, very rapidly, and you look bored, you look thin, and what you're doing is you're trying to fight staying awake, but also pain-related stuff as well. But you can come across, because you're too busy concentrating on, like, you should stay awake like that and everything. I'm like this type of thing, you might come across, that person's lazy. That person's lazy, they look uninterested, they look everything else. When in actual fact, they're fighting the condition to stay where they are, and they're struggling with lots of things. And they're either too afraid to tell the boss, because the boss will go, well, if you can't do the job, leave. When they can do the job, they just need a little bit of extra support. And so a lot of it is education side of it, and that's one of the points of doing a lot of the stuff. So I do a workshop as well, which is more about the understanding side of it. So I describe it sometimes as like a workshop mixed with the film Shutter Island, that you're not 100% sure what's going on. But that's the point, is to make the people feel a little bit uncomfortable, because that the feeling of uncomfortability is what somebody with a chronic illness and some in neurodiversity will feel on a daily basis. So to feel something, as opposed to, I could throw data and statistics at you all day, and you might take some of it in, but to actually feel areas. I don't do anything nasty. I don't like stab you or something like that. This is how it feels, or anything like that. I don't drug your coffee. But it's just certain things. So one of the examples is marbles in the shoes. Marbles in the shoes is one of my favorites, because it's not painful, but the feeling of uncomfortability, that there's something wrong with your feet, stays with you for weeks. I remember I worked with a company, and he doesn't mind me telling, because he tells loads of people this story as well, is that I did the shoe thing with him, and I saw him 2 weeks later. He said, I could still feel him in the shoes and everything. He still feels uncomfortable. I'm walking around and going, next that bloody feeling again. But it helped shape a lot of the stuff he did in his workplace from that. He looked at people not based on their condition. He looked at them based on their ability to do the job, and everything else was bypassed. They have people who are currently off sick, or can only work at home, or can only do certain hours, but they're very, very good at their job. And they would never have employed them beforehand, but now they've got them, and the team understand it, and they do a lot more well-being in the workplace stuff across the board. The brilliant company and everything. And I think that's one of the things, is in understanding. You don't have to understand everything. You just have to understand enough that it doesn't always have to be a negative. It can actually be a massive positive to a company. What a lot of people don't get is, if you've got a chronic illness, disability, or whatever, you're more likely to spot a problem in a company, especially if it's to do with something like that, quicker than any other person in that business. Because if you need a change, and everybody goes, oh, I'm going to change it for that person. You're not changing it for that person. You're changing it for everybody, because everybody will benefit. And you're also preempting anything happening to any of those people who are okay, including yourself. So it's that. And people with chronic illnesses and disabilities will spot a lot of problems that will save you a hell of a lot of money and a hell of a lot of time a lot more quicker.
I also feel people, sorry, what I just want to add,
Karen.
I think people underestimate the enormous energy it takes for someone with chronic pain in the body to get through the day as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm in pain 24/7. Levels do differ. If anybody saw me yesterday, on Saturday, I was at the football on Saturday, and I started back spasming and everything, and I'm leaning against things, and I'm down, and I rarely take medication because it makes me feel quite zombified. So, but even then, I've had to take a little bit of medication and everything just to take the edge off. And when I'm talking that, we're talking at like a level 8-9 pain scale, and it takes a lot for me to take medication. And everything. So yeah, it is, and you're having to go through that. But there's multitudes of symptoms other than just pain. You've got the fatigue. I get chronic conjunctivitis, so it's you can't see anything, and it's incredibly itchy. And things. There's the stomach issues. So as I said before at the very beginning, is elasticated waist. So if you're wearing a pair of jeans, for example, and they're just like normal straight jeans for that, if you go from a size 34 to a 38 in the space, and back to a 34, maybe a 36 throughout the day, depending on how your stomach's going. So if you've got one pair of 34s in, halfway through the day, you're in town, and suddenly you've turned into a 38, and you're like, what have I done wearing these? They're cutting off the circulation and everything. So wearing like elasticated jeans and things like that, or belts that have fabric belts and everything. It's just little things that are in there that and how to go through them and manage all your symptoms and understanding your triggers. Triggers is really important to try and understand. It's like with the weather. It smells like it's going to rain. People can do that and everything. There is things you can preempt and go, right, I feel that the pain, I'm going to be in pain, proper pain, levels, like I say, levels of pain, probably about an hour or so like that. I'll see how I get on. You can feel things a bit earlier and everything. It's like an early warning system. But yeah, it's very difficult sometimes to navigate the day. You've got to pace yourself and understand what you've got going on. So after this I'll probably have an hour. Not an hour's sleep. I'll just have an hour's rest to chill out and everything, and then crack on with the rest of my day.
That's good. Yeah, we don't want to be too taxing on you today, mate. Just going to be a little bit controversial, if I may.
Ooh, yeah.
Study some time ago, and somebody mentioned this to me, and I actually looked into it, and it actually was a study. 95% of illnesses are psychosomatic.
I do get it. I think it's the level of illness that can be psychosomatic in that all conditions, not all conditions, all is everything, isn't it? Most conditions are actually physiological and everything, but they all have an aspect of mental, because it's how you interpret them to yourself. Now, some people will have an illness, unspecified, and say, I'm too sick to do anything. And it's like a labeling theory, isn't it? If you think of yourself as a loser, you're a loser because you've got that labeling theory. So if I think of myself as ill, I'm too sick to work, I'm too sick to do this and everything, people have said I'm too ill to do this. You will be. And everything, because your mind will take that and go, your mind just wants to rest. It doesn't want you to do anything that might cause you pain. So, relaxing and doing things and everything, it will say that's probably the best thing for you to do. You've got to then look at the mindset side of it and not get over it, but sort of look at ways to improve your situation. And that's why I think a lot of it look at psychosomatic, because there's also levels of the condition. So if we use autism, for example, so I'm autistic, but you wouldn't know that to talk to me. I've learned how to look at people through the eyes. I've learned how to mask a lot of my symptoms, shall we say, and everything. Whereas other people, you could be in a wheelchair, needing a keyboard and be autistic, and on different ways that it interacts with that person. So it's across a scale. So people look at people with certain conditions and go, well, they're faking it and things like that. So that's why a lot of it comes from. Plus, the other thing as well is having a chronic illness isn't straight. Like, so if you broke your arm, you broke your arm. It's straight until it recovers. You're fine, you break, you're recovered, you're back to normal again. A chronic illness is like this. You can be fine one day. So if we use my example for me, I could be fine one day bowling, going 10-pin bowling and everything, twisting, turning, doing the run, throwing the balls, absolutely no problem. Go and do a walk, go and do a 2-hour walk, absolutely no problem. I'm in the gym near enough every other day. Absolutely no problem. Nothing wrong with him. And a couple of days later, I could be in bed for 12 hours and everything, absolutely in pain, spasming, heat coming down, can't see, all of that. And they'll go, bloody hell, he's ill. Are you okay today? It's that, because it's a wave, and people go, well, if they can do that, then they must be faking it. So it must all be in their head. So I do get it. And mindset is a big key area that he's looking in.
Well, it's also about controlling your mindset as well. Like you said, I think you've mentioned it already, is that you get to a certain point. It's about controlling your mindset in order to be able to control the condition at that particular, or the illness, or how you're feeling at that particular time. That makes the difference.
Yeah, mindset. Without mindset, I'd probably not be here and everything. I would say that mindset saved my life in that respect. So I look at it that one of the sayings that I tend to use a lot is, if you can bring value to your day is valuable. So in that value level can be anything. So some days for a chronic can be, today I went into the lounge and I put my own socks on. Because some days you can be a massive bodybuilder and still need somebody else to put your socks on some days, because you just can't, your body just can't do it. So, it's all about those little values. And when you do those little values, you go, right, today I put my socks on for myself. Brilliant. That is equivalent to somebody going up Everest on some days. So you take those little successes, and then those little successes become more successes. You become addicted to the successes. And because they're really small, you can have like 100 in a day. And when you actually start getting that, you then start looking at other things. What else can I do? What else can I do? And those successes then drive that mindset to become stronger and stronger, to want to do more things. And to be honest, you're ill anyway. I mean, this is speaking to anybody who's chronically ill. You're ill anyway. So when somebody says, do you want to come to such a thing? And you're like, oh, I can't possibly go to that because I might get really ill. I might end up in a load of pain and it'll hurt and everything else. Well, it's going to hurt anyway. So you may as well get the memory and have the good memory. Yes, it's going to hurt. And you're going to be like, afterwards, I shouldn't have gone, my God, and everything else. But you'll have that memory of doing something like going to the football, going on a date, doing all these different things, really great experiences. Alternatively, you're sat at home in the pain anyway, thinking, well, I wish I had done X, Y, and Z. So there's where the mindset helps a lot. But starting small is really important.
So is that the badass attitude, doing things anyway, or more to it?
Absolutely. So the chronic warrior is the term that's usually described for people with chronic illness, the warrior sort of thing. Now, I originally went with that and everything, and hence the sword, and that it's always fighting your body. You're fighting your own body, and it's that sort of battle atmosphere. But the difference between the warrior and the badass, so the warrior is constantly in battle. It's fighting against the condition. So it's always in that war mode. You get up and you wake up, you battle, and everything. The badass in there understands that the pain's there. It's sort of like, if I wake up in the morning and I'm not in pain, well, I ain't waking up in the morning because I'm obviously dead. So it's understanding that pain's part of the journey, and it's adapting it and going, you know what, I've got it. I'm just going to get on with life anyway, and just look at different things. I'm going to look at research. I'm going to develop my weight, and I'm going to look at how I can adapt myself with my new life, because the old life's dead. You're gone. That life is no longer there. I'm really, really sorry, but you died at that point. You've now got to develop that new life, and the badass is a case of developing the new life to make the best version of yourself based on your conditions, and just doing it in spite of them. And I think that, and badasses tend to be like a lot of visionaries. A lot of them are very singular. So when I say about our community, I call us our horde, because a horde is a combination of individuals as opposed to everybody's the same, because we're not all the same. There'll be, say, 1,000 chronics watch this video. Every single one of us will have something different, and our journey will be different, but we can still be a badass and how we interact with it. So that's the way how the badass thing interplays with it.
I love it.
I like it.
Yeah.
And it sounds better than warrior.
It has a different energy to it, like you said before,
Yeah, that's badass. Yeah.
Is there a way of where I'll go to the tipping point first. We have a part of the show where we talk about the tipping point. Where do you see as the tipping point, or where was the tipping point for you to then become the chronic badass, in a sense?
Wow. I talk a little bit about this story and everything on when I do some speaking things and everything. I still don't know how I'm still here, based on those 10 days. So how, like they say, the 3 worst things you can go through is like divorce, losing your house, and illness or something. They're the 3 big key areas, they think. So So we go back to 2016. Now I'm married, not to my wife now. I'm previously married and everything. And we had a house, and we had 2 dogs. Well, technically 3. Just acquired a third dog. We did rescue dogs. So we had the dogs and everything else, and we were thinking of having children and everything and that. And I'd got a bit sick. And everything. I use bit and everything because it's sort of like, my God, that's really bit, So and we'd gone to go and have some tests done and everything else, and it found out I had testicular tumours, and so it was going to be a case of like, there's a possibility of surgery in there, and are they malignant, and things. So from that, we found out that I had a condition called Klinefelter syndrome. Klinefelter syndrome is a genetic condition. Best way of describing it is you have XY and X and XXY, whatever it is like that. So mine's double X. So it's not the male chromosome, it's not the female chromosome, it's sort of in the middle and everything. It's its own genetic sort of makeup of chromosomal. It doesn't mean that I'm neither. I'm a man. Only men can get Klinefelter syndrome. And everything, and it does multiple things. It can cause tumors. It can cause not arthritis. It's the other one. It's called brittle bones. It can cause infertility, and it can cause a multitude of other conditions, especially even autism. It can cause mental issues as well. So we discovered I had that, and we were going to go through some checks. And I think we'd been married about 3 years or something at that point. We'd been together about 9, and I'd gone to Slimming World because I was quite a big person at that point, about 18 stone back then. So we're at Slimming World, and we met up with some friends, her and her husband. Her husband wasn't there, but we met up with the wife. We did Slimming World, blah blah blah, did well. We said, right, we'll see you the weekend. Yeah, no problem. Got home, and my bags were packed. I'm like, okay. Now, weirdly enough, I'd had this daydream that I'd come home from uni and caught my wife with somebody else. And then I told her the dream, and she was like, you're having a laugh. And then a week later, my bags are packed and everything. And she said that she was really sorry, but she had been having an affair with the husband of the wife we'd just left. And it had been going on for months. And he was telling his wife that night, and he was moving in on the Friday. And this was Wednesday. I was welcome to stay if I wanted to, but I'd have to stay in the spare room. I was like, oh. So I got shipped off to my mum's and everything in black bags and everything. And I saw her again on the Friday. So this is Wednesday. So I saw her on the Friday. I said, well, what happened? What's gone on? And she said, well, I can't look after you because you're sick. I didn't know I was sick. I knew there was a genetic condition, but I was on the Monday. I was going into the hospital to go and see what was going on. Now, she worked at the hospital. I'm not saying anything in that respect, but, it's this weird sort of thing when she said, I can't look after you because you're sick. And I'm like, am I sick? Sort of thing. And that she was happy in this relationship. Now, to be fair to them, they're still together, and, good luck to them and all that. So on the Monday, so it was Wednesday on the Monday, went into the doctors, and they said, yes, 95% cancer in both. You're going to need surgery for both, and possibly lymph nodes and everything else. I was along the lines of like, 5%, What's the chances you just take the one and then we'll just see? And they said, well, we absolutely advise that you do both. And I said, well, I'll take it on the chin. If it's spread, it's spread. What can I do? There's a massive difference between losing one and losing both testicles for a man and everything. So said, right, so we're going to do that in a couple of days, but we need to get you over to Manchester to go and put some sperm away, because if you want children at a later point. So great. So a couple of days later, I went up to Manchester with my sister, and they said, you're completely infertile. Yeah, no chance. You've probably been infertile since you were born. And everything due to the Klinefelter. So obviously now I've just found out I can't have children. Came out, I think I punched a wall, and everything else. And then went to an art museum to go and chill out. And then from that, then we had the surgery. So one out on there. So that was the 10-day period of losing my wife, my home, my dogs. I never got to say goodbye to the dogs. The ability to have children, and one of the boys, and everything. And that was an incredibly difficult time. I think it's because all the hits were at once. It didn't fully hit me until later on. From that, you have to wait about 2-3 weeks for your results. It was on my side. It was 5%. They were benign, so I did not need any more surgery, but I needed to have tests done every couple of months, which I did. I've not had any problems for years. Still there, but and they do irritate me now and again, pain-wise, but not that bad. And then from that, I was studying social work at a master's level, and I'd already done 1 year, so I was in the second year, and I'm about to start my placement. And the day before my placement, I'd gone to Liverpool, and anybody who's been to Liverpool, they have a Waterstones in Liverpool with that big escalator. I nearly came down it. The amount of pain that shot through me, I nearly came down it. I had to come home straight to the hospital, and the surgery. Well, I say the surgery had triggered the fibromyalgia and everything because I was on Oromorph, and I was ill for a long period of time for that. So I had to drop out of university. Well, I didn't technically drop out. I did my dissertation, but I can't study, be a social worker because it's a weird one. If you do your dissertation, you can have a postgraduate, but you can't be a social worker. But if you don't do your dissertation and you do the coursework, so the placement, for example, you can be a social worker. It's a weird sort of thing to do. But I graduated with my group and everything in extreme pain, and from that met my wife, and that who's always known me ill, which is nice. You know, it's not a case of like I'm leaving you because you're sick. She's never known me well. And everything, but it was during that I ended up getting the fibromyalgia. I was 6 days a week drinking Oromorph, which is liquid morphine, throwing up whenever we went out. We tried to go out a couple of times, and I'd be doubling over in pain, throwing up at the side. Couldn't keep anything down. We tried dates and everything. There was no chance. I'm also hypermobile, so occasionally, you know, the legs and arms will dislocate on things. There's a funny story for that, but I'll save that. And there was other things that went on, and it was during that time. And the bit that you say about that tipping point, obviously those are the things that brought it up. But what changed to be the badass is I'd had enough. Now, my wife had left me with a hell of a lot of debt, and I mean a hell of a lot of debt. We're talking about 15-20 grand and everything, and refused to pay it. You know, refused to pay anything, and I was saying there was no money and everything. But anyway, so I had all that debt. I obviously wasn't working. They told me you're never working again. I had all these problems. I really could struggle. So I'm going to do myself in. I've had enough. So I thought I need to ring the Samaritans. The Samaritans will help me out. This is a really negative plug to the Samaritans. So apologies if you work there. This was a long time ago and everything. So I rang the Samaritans in 2017 to say, look, I need some help. And they didn't answer. So it just rang out. And then I tried them again a little bit later, and it just rang out. And I was so annoyed that I'm there reaching out for help and nobody's answering. I was like, you know what? I will do it myself. And that's what I did. I ended up looking at motivation, accountability, little successes, little things, reading a lot, listening to a lot. And it's a plug for them. I don't know them or anything, but there's a channel called Fearless Motivation. They do a lot of motivational videos. Absolutely fantastic. I would listen to them every morning and every night. Just about 20 minutes in the morning and a night, just to get myself in there. The positives as well as the negatives. A lot of people think that you have to only listen to positive things. That's not true. You have to listen to both, because if you only listen to positive things, the moment somebody says something negative to you, you're back to square one. Whereas if you listen to both, you'll build that resilience in there to move forward. And I think that's what channeled it. A case of like, right, fine, I'm going to do it myself. If nobody's going to save me, I'm going to save myself.
Wow, I admire you, like your strength. That's very inspirational. Amazing. Going through all of that and pulling yourself out. Wow. Really
And
cool.
like I said, I still don't know how I got through all of that.
It goes to show, you know, that in the face of adversity, that you can change things, can't you? You can turn around, and sometimes it does take that inner strength to go, do you know what? I'm going to make sure I do this.
Yeah.
I can relate to it on some level. I mean, not as bad as yourself. So and thank you. Really do appreciate you sharing that to everybody. Thank you for that. But you know, when I mean, 2017, when I had a major car vehicle collision, your life changes, and through having EMDR, my therapist said to me, she said, you've left part of you on the motorway.
Yeah.
Do you feel that you've left or you've lost something then from back? I think you mentioned it before. Your past life has gone now.
Yes. So
what you need to move forward.
It's funny, really. It's only in the last probably about 12, 18 months that I've fully embraced this side of it. Is that that past life, and it is a past life because you do die that moment something happens. If it's part of you, the full part of you, and everything else, everything you could possibly do before is gone, and everything. So I look at it that it was quite a mundane life, really. I did a little bit of like, you know, tech related stuff and everything, but I didn't really do anything. I had a lot of dreams, a lot of thoughts and everything, but didn't really do anything. I was and that like it was quite boring, really. And then this new life is sort of like, well, I've got a degenerative sort of multitude of conditions, so I'm going to get worse. You know, and there'll be points where I'm, you know, will I make 75? You know, that'd be great. You know, you were at we were at a thing the other day together, and they said, you know, what would you say to your family and friends when you're 65, 75? And I'm like, hey, I'm alive. You know, that would be exactly what I'm going to say. So I look at it as two different lives. It's sort of like when you get your even before diagnosis, to be honest, when you get ill, it's sort of like that life has as you've technically died at that point, and then it's sort of rebuilding and growing and forging that new life. And I see this version of myself as a completely different. If you look at how I was then to how I am now, I mean, I'm a hell of a lot smaller. I was about 18 stone. I looked at pictures of me and I'm like this, you know. I look older I look older in my 20s than I do now, you know, in my 40s and everything. So it made a massive difference to my health and life. Ironically enough, I'm healthier than I was back then, even with 8 conditions and everything. It's a funny thing, but yeah, it's about that creating that new life. And I'm happier being sick than I ever was not being. And that's why I talk about it. You know, it's the tagline for a lot of the stuff I do is and everything is you can be sick but still have a badass sick life. And it's about that, and that's what I do. I enjoy things more. I go out. I'd say yes to a lot more things. There's a lot of things I should say no to, but you know, there's a lot of things that I say yes to, and let's do it. Let's go. And everything. And I'm enjoying it a lot more. Does it hurt? Yeah, absolutely. But doing it anyway.
If you could give one tip to someone to get out of the victim mind into the badass mind, what would it be?
There's a multitude of things, really. It all depends on the person to themselves. I think, as I said before, you're going to be in pain either way. You know, you're in pain if you don't do anything, and you're going to be in pain if you do something. So I think sometimes just say yes to something else. Just say yes. If somebody said, like, you know, going out for a coffee or something, say yeah. Just say yeah, go out. You might absolutely hate it, but you've tried something. Just those little successes, you know, just doing that little bit of something each day and celebrate it. You know, it's there's been, like I said, there's been a day when I couldn't put my socks on. I had to get my wife to put my socks on and things like that, and dress me or undress me and everything, which is not as cool as it sounds when you're like, oh, pain and everything else. It's horrendous. But to to do that for yourself and just to go, what did you do today? Well, today I got up and I didn't sit in bed. I went into the other room and I just sat down in there and I read a book, or I did something. It doesn't have to be massive. You don't have to go and do a marathon, sign up to a marathon, or go hiking. It can be something as simple as moving from the bedroom into another room and getting dressed, or doing something as simple as putting your socks on and just doing something every day as a success, and celebrate the fact that you've done something positive, because that will become addictive. That's probably the best way of describing it for a tip. Try something.
A lot of the time, we've mentioned, it's mentioned before, a lot of time is accepting what you have as well, isn't it? It's about saying, I have got a condition, you can't mask it, you've got it, accept it. And then once you truly accept that you've got something, things start to change, certainly mentally, and you can make more of an effort to change or do those little things like you say.
Yeah, it is a cycle. It's like the grief cycle. When you lose somebody, when somebody passes away, you go through the grief, sadness, anger, acceptance, all of those types of things. And that's what you have to go through with a chronic illness, because you're basically mourning yourself. You're mourning the life that you had before, where it was pain-free, symptom-free, and everything. So you've got to go through that cycle, and acceptance is a big part of it. Yes, you are ill now. This is the new reality and everything, and it's all about looking for the maintenance. How can I live my best life and maintain the good days over the bad days? So now, as I said before, I had 6 days a week, bad days. The other day was relatively okay, but everything. Now I have 6 days a week. Great. I'm out. I do something every day. I'm out at a weekend. I get to go out to shops. I go to the football. I go and enjoy things. I go 10-pin bowling. I go and do things and everything. I enjoy them. I go to a lot of meetings. I travel a lot because I don't drive anymore due to some of the conditions. So some of my trips might take me 5 hours on a round trip and everything. So if you're going to do that, get some headphones, and listen to stuff on it and everything. But it is a case of just doing it. It's really important.
Listen to the Exploring You podcast.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we'll go through a couple of episodes on a 5-hour round trip.
Of course you can. You're surprised what you can learn on our podcast. But where do you see, as on the medication side of things? Are you an advocate for medication? Are you looking at more when you're talking about the research and stuff? Are you kind of steering away from that, where people can adapt away from medication?
And medication's an interesting one. So there will be conditions that you require certain medication, and that is absolute. If there is a certain condition that requires a daily medication route, then you should absolutely take it until you. It's about communication. So I had a chat with my doctor, and they prescribed me certain medication. Now, my weird thing with medication is I was once diagnosed with a condition that was misdiagnosed. And I was misdiagnosed for about 2-3 years. I had autism, but they didn't know. They misdiagnosed it with something else that mimics the condition, and you end up getting put on like antipsychotics and things like that, and everything, which was not a good time. So it's understanding your condition. So that's why I talk a lot about diagnosis. There's pre-diagnosis where you think you might have something, or you have the symptoms of something, but unless you have the actual diagnosis, you shouldn't be touching any medication until you have an official diagnosis. You have to have a conversation with your GP over that. There's a difference between the medication that you need to function. So water tablets, for example, if you're on a certain thing, you need water tablets. If you're not getting it from your diet and everything, then yes, you will need that medication because it's keeping you alive. And then you're looking at the ones like with the pain. So I have medication. I've gone down the levels for the medication. So I have medication in the house, but I can go months without taking it because of the way I work with my body and everything else. And it takes years. absolute years to work out with your body what actually works and what doesn't work, and that can be vitamins, proteins, exercise. I've got a guidebook coming out for it and everything, which is a model I call TED, and everything, and it's how you interact, how food and diet and drinks and everything else interplays with the chemicals of your body. So what works for me might not work for you, and it's about doing those tests to see what's right for you. So it might be that you will get all the things that the medication is helping you through the years. You might be on medication for a while, but then you might be able to come off it and everything. No, to be honest, nobody should be on medication at all, because it still does damage. There's certain medication that will do massive damage to you long term. So no real medication should be realistically long term. You can look at any research on that. They will say that you need to look at side effects and the things that are in them, and everything else that should never really be long term. So you should be looking at things so having a conversation with your doctor and going, look, this is the medication that I'm on. What can I be doing outside of that to reduce it or come off it? What are the things that's needed? What's the things that's missing in my body that this medication is assisting with, and then looking at that and working with it. So it does belong in certain areas, and everything. But as a friend says about preventative, not cure, and everything, mine is a quality prehab is better than an expensive rehab. It's a bit late once you've already got it. So it's looking at different ways of how you can mimic the effect of the medication through alternative things. That's possibly the better way of doing it. Mm. So it has its place.
Interesting. Interesting. You mentioned. Did you mention something about gender at the very beginning, or was it neurodiversity? You wanted to.
I said neurodiversity, but I mentioned the gender pain gap.
That's what you're saying. What is it about that you wanted to touch on?
Well, I was just saying that it's one of the guides that I've written, actually. But a thing about the gender pain gap is an interesting thing of looking at it. So men, for example, men don't tend to go to the doctors. They have a thing that, you can't be a man if you admit that there's something wrong. All that sort of thing. And it's let's be honest, you're still human. You have stuff that's going on. You need to talk to people, and if something's wrong, you need to go to the doctors and everything. So a lot of men will tend not to do that for societal reasons. So when they do go to the doctors, they're more likely listened to because it's taken a lot for them to come. So when it comes to diagnosis of things, they'll tend to get diagnosed a lot quicker than women because they only go to the doctors when there's a problem. With the women on a lot of side is a lot of certain conditions women will be dismissed as being hormonal. If there's stuff to do with pain downstairs, for example, it'll be, it's just a heavy flow and everything. It's is everything okay at home? It's a lot of historical types of prejudice in there that women aren't always believed. There must be something else. They have a low pain threshold. It's nothing. So certain conditions will take years for diagnosis. So if we use, for example, fibromyalgia, we used it, is the average diagnosis time is about 3 to 5 years for women and everything. It was about 2 to 3 for men. I think mine was 2. For women, it can be 3 to 5. For endometriosis, I can never pronounce the word, but it's, you know what I mean. That's 7 years. On average is 7 years, and that's a long time, and certain conditions will get worse. They have lots of stages. So that one, for example, has 4 stages. If it's taken 7 years to get diagnosed, and you get it when you're a teenager, and you don't get diagnosed till like in your 30s or something like that, that could actually have developed to like stage 3 or 4, where that is surgery. There is no getting around it. That is surgery. And a lot of other problems, and lots of pain, and lots of relationship problems and things like that can cause a lot of issues. So the gender pain gap is something that is massively real, Not to be confused with the gender pay gap, sort of thing. But which a lot of people are going like that. It's not to be confused with that, which has its own sort of merits in there. But definitely, the gender pay gap is something that it needs a lot more developing and looking at a lot better. There's a lot more professionals that need to understand where that's coming from. It'd be interesting to hear it from Alexandra's point of view, being the lady on the panel. Sorry for the assumption, but I'm just going to put it there, and everything on the gender pay gap.
Yeah, for me, the key issue is with menopause. Like you go through all these hormonal imbalances and all these different pains come up. And when you go to your gynecologist or GP, it's all like, oh, that's just how it is. You need to go through it, and then you start your own research and you see that there are the way what you eat, you can balance some of the symptoms. Aromatherapy can help you alleviate some of the pains. Then there's so many different things you can do, but the pharma or the GPs, they are just like, oh, it's like you are a woman, that is what you have to go through. And also understanding all these hormonal imbalances when you still have to, if you have a full-time job and you need to function 100%, but your body is just exhausting because of some hormonal imbalances. And I think there's no understanding or support on that side. And there needs to be a massive shift. And especially for gynecologists, I feel they really need to understand the hormonal system of women much, much better. And also what you can do on an alternative level, like with homeopathy or other medication, and not just what the pharma industry is dictating you, or just say, well, this is how it is. That's what you need to go through for the next 10 years. It's very frustrating.
It's that thing, isn't it, where they joke about that when you're at school, there's certain classes that you go to, and you go at the French kissing class. I was like, why was I never invited to these classes? Is the menopause class is at a certain point when you get to this age, this is what's going to happen to you. These are the things to be aware of. It just happens, and you go to the doctors, and they go, yeah, well, you're a woman, of course. You go, where was my class? Where was my preempt? Where was this? Where did they teach this at school? Mental health. Where did they teach this at school? Accounting. Things like that. There's certain things that I think if it's going to happen to you, and let's be honest, it happens to the majority of women, not all women because of certain things. But if it's going to happen to you anyway, then maybe there should be something being taught to you when you're younger. So when it does happen, it doesn't come as a massive shock and transform your entire life. Yeah. And it can do. It can cause a multitude of different problems and everything, and especially if you're not ready for it. And that's why I think, again, there needs to be more education out there.
Yeah, I think that's what we also in our society missing are these transitioning support into the certain phases of your life. I think indigenous communities are a bit more supportive, like starting in childhood, becoming a man, a woman, there is celebrations around it or support. And I think we are missing that. And especially menopause, you wake up in the morning and everything hurts, and you start questioning, are you imagining things?
And all the chronics are going, see, that's how it feels.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say about the school.
Sorry,
it's interesting you say about getting it into early, into people earlier. But you've got that balance, haven't you? Because then, even though the parents were going, you can't teach my kids that at school; it's too young, and this. Well, actually, you should be teaching them this to have them prepared. All right, they'll probably forget it the day after, but it depends on the age you're telling them. Certainly when you've got to be able to, you can't go telling a 3-year-old, in another 70 years time or another 50 years time, you're going to have menopause. The kid's going to go, yeah, whatever. It's not going to work. But at what point do you think that then that they should have it into incorporating this?
High school, absolutely, high school. And everything. There's a multitude.
And that includes bringing the parents in, I think, as well, doesn't it? I think the parents should be part of that as well.
Yes. Yeah. In relation to primary school, there is a multitude of things that are being taught at probably primary school that I personally probably wouldn't have in there. I don't need to go into detail over that, and things that people are bringing in and everything. But even in high school, there needs to be more shift to more coursework related stuff, because being autistic as well, and the memory sort of thing. I said to you before we started this podcast that I might go off on a tangent and forget a question, and everything else. Can you imagine that in an exam? So there's different sorts of things in there. What I mean by in being taught there, so it's a societal thing. So there's a lot of things to do with society that I have an issue with that is considered acceptable, but other things aren't. So we've just talked about menopause there. Menopause, it's secret. The lady's got a secret. Periods be secrets. It's half the population, mate. You know what I mean? It's not a secret. And everything else. It's ridiculous. But we can't have an open conversation about it. We can't have an open conversation about illness. We can't have an open conversation about death, because it's not good. But then you look at alcohol, for example. Now, alcohol, I had a really good relationship with alcohol when I was younger. When I mean that, I mean, you know what I mean, and everything. But it's considered societally normal to be drinking. Going out tonight, you're coming out for a drink. Now, if I said no, are you on medication? Is there something wrong with you? What's wrong? Why are you not drinking? Well, I'm not drinking because it's bloody poisonous, and everything, and it makes me ill, or anything else. And that should be the actual answer. But because of society, it's not. It's weird that you're not drinking, which is something really negative. But then if I wanted to have a conversation about menopause, or which would be weird for me to do, but you know what I mean, about menopause or about chronic illness or about death or about anything else, shh, can't talk about that. That's not right. That's not right. We just have a weird way in society of things that are acceptable and things that aren't acceptable. So, and that's why I think in high school, I think there's certain things that we should be being taught and that we aren't being taught.
Totally agree. Mate, we've been going, believe it or not, I think we're close on to about an hour already. It's been absolute brilliant listening to and talking to you today. And thank you. I mean, we met through the It's Mental Wellbeing Collective, which do some great work of bringing people together as a collective to help others. So I'd like to give you your 5 minutes of fame, if I may. The floor is yours. It's there for you to tell yourself, tell the world, all 50 of our listeners. No, I'm sure there's a few more. But
it's 51. I joined last night.
Yay! We got over the 50 mark. No, please tell the world what you do, how they can get hold of you, and everything else.
So yes, if you want to get hold of me, you can go onto the website, which is www.thechronicedge.co.uk. The website currently, as I said, is having a bit of a change. So in about a week or so, it'll be all badassery and everything. Lots of biker leather jackets in there. If Bodyskins, if you're listening, I would love to do a collaboration with leather jackets. I'm after a purple one. And I think it's for me, it's if you're interested in if you're a company, you want to learn a little bit more about how you can assist your employees and yourself potentially with awareness in a little bit different. I have an interactive course called Toxic Rain, which will be definitely different, but it should really, really help learn those sorts of elements of how you can increase productivity, retention, but also learn a lot more about yourself and your employees and things. And if you are a chronic and everything, and you're looking for support on starting a business or a little bit of help in relation to your life, looking at different things and everything, then there's going to be a lot of information for you on there that you maybe join one of our cohorts, listening to other people like myself who have these conditions, and they then train up to be a badass mentor yourself. I mean, that would be awesome. So let's say couple of weeks, nip onto the website, have a look, get in touch. I'm happy to do events, speaking, anything like that, either like this or in person. I think there's going to be an event coming up with It's Mental in Preston that I should be there for, and definitely one in Manchester. And just remember, it's you can be sick and still have a badass sick life. So wherever you're going through and everything, just take those little bits and make those little successes and just roll with it. So yeah,
brilliant, mate, fantastic. I think that's brilliant. Thank you so much for being on. Alexandra, anything else?
Thank you for having me.
No, I appreciate that you were on the show, Elliot. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
To be quite honest, it wasn't what I was expecting, but it's a lot better than what I thought, to be honest with you. But there you go. So fantastic, mate. Thank you. As always, we'd like to thank our supporters, PromoDoodle, the Professional Bodyguard Association, Burnley District Motorcycle Group, Mira, Gervacio, and Tailors of Liverpool. We have our donations pages for on Easy Fundraising, the Mind Corps, and our GoFundMe is under the Retreat and Training Centre, which we're trying to raise funds for men and veterans with mental health. From me, Darren Alexandra, thank you very much, everyone, for listening, watching. As usual, Alexandra?
Give us a like, a comment, a share, subscribe to our channel so we can grow. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for subscribing as well, Elliot. That's appreciated.
You're very welcome.
Until the next time, everybody, stay safe. Thanks a lot. See you soon.
Bye-bye.